Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Well, today is the day that we have been waiting for. Nancy Pelosi, there is no shift. I repeat, and I continue to repeat, absolutely no shift towards the Democrats after the SCOTUS Roe v. Wade decision. And what I mean by this is the moment that we have been waiting for, what I said in a video I think maybe a week and a half ago, or definitely a week ago, was that we have to wait for all of the polling outlets to release their new data following the SCOTUS decision. And more specifically, we have to wait for very accurate, non-partisan, scientifically consistent data like the data we see from Rasmussen polls. And that's what I said, we gotta wait for Rasmussen, folks, and we gotta wait for Trafalgar. And today is the day where we finally have the new Rasmussen poll. And Democrats, once again, Nancy Pelosi, once again, I apologize if this doesn't fit your worldview or whatever fantasy you want to live in. There is absolutely no shift towards the Democrat Party. Democrats have made no gains on the issue of abortion. It remains an absolutely irrelevant topic headed into the 2022 election. In fact, Democrats might be in a worse position going into the 2022 midterms after Roe than they were before. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on here, because leftoids remain just as screwed as they have been for the last couple of months. Nothing has changed. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, here are all the numbers. And as you guys can see, ever since those two absolutely phony Democrat push polls that we completely dismantled maybe a week or two ago, the trend continues in the exact opposite direction that Democrats were hoping for. The two most recent polls released, Rasmussen reports an insider advantage. By the way, two of the most accurate pollsters out there. Insider advantage is one of the few polls that actually predicted the 2016 election. And Rasmussen reports, of course, one of the best polling outlets there is, right alongside with Insider Advantage and Trafalgar Group. Well, they're both showing basically the same thing, a +8 Republican lead, with Republicans holding nearly 50% support of those surveyed, not even counting undecided. And if we go back through the history of Insider Advantage and Rasmussen polls over the last couple of months, well, it falls right in line with that +8, +9 lead that we've seen for months. In other words, absolutely nothing has changed. I don't know how many times I have to repeat that, but I keep seeing so many copium Democrats who keep pushing this abortion narrative, and it's just not resonating. Even in Democrat strongholds, I've been following a bunch of congressional ballot data specific to states alone, and even in Democrat-leaning states or purple states, Democrats are underperforming. They are underperforming everywhere. And the most important key factor that I think is going to be their undoing is independent voters. In the Rasmussen poll showing a +8 lead for Republicans, when it comes to independents, Republicans lead by +12 at 43% to 31. And this right here has a great effect on undecided voters. Many times you have Democrat voters, Republican voters, they're going to split as expected for their own party at incredibly high numbers. The most important demographic are independent, undecided voters. For the Republican Party, this means that most likely the Republican lead is understated like it usually is. If the GOP is doing well in early voting metrics, and Democrats are doing bad with independents, it signals the end of Democrat electoral hopes. In previous elections where Republicans have actually been losing to the Democrats, in generic congressional ballot data, they've ended up winning the Senate and winning the House. Because of course, first of all, there's a bias in this polling data, but secondly, there's an oversampling of Democrats that's baked into the data itself. This means Democrats have to be ahead significantly. If the numbers are close, it's bad for the Democrats. If Republicans are leading, it's a nightmare scenario for the Democrats. But if Republicans are leading and also leading with independents, well, you have that lead, which is most likely going to be further pushed by independents who end up deciding to vote Republican. If you look at the RCP average, we're seeing a plus Republican 2.5 lead. I believe that is greatly underestimating how much more popular Republicans are than Democrats right now. And really, I wouldn't even necessarily say that Republicans are much more popular than Democrats. It's more so Democrats are so incredibly unpopular that people are just jumping ship. And that is not going to change. And you know why? Well, it probably has something to do with abortion. Kamala Harris recently said this during an interview.
So what now, though?
We need to understand that states are passing laws because of what the Supreme Court has now allowed to happen. So what does this mean? It means that we're looking at elections coming up in 120-something days. They're going to be about who serves in Congress, and we need a pro-choice Congress.
This is not your winning issue, Democrats. They don't seem to understand. They continue to focus on this one single issue that repeatedly, as you see in the data, nobody cares about. Even your own voters are telling you to wake up.
Democrats don't fight hard enough for nothing. Like right now, Might as well be in a recession, and they're not even trying to fight to help or nothing. And Biden, to me, he just talking circles.
We're seeing incredible economic distress, and all these Democrats keep talking about is abortion. Nobody cares, or very few people care. And even with their own voters telling them that these are the issues that we want you to focus on, these are the issues that are affecting our lives, and with all of the polling data suggesting the exact same thing, these Democrats keep going on with this bogus narrative that isn't even a winning issue for them. We've covered all the data. I'm not going to reiterate or regurgitate any of it, but essentially the conclusion is that Democrats, and especially Democrat strategists and campaign people, are completely and utterly incompetent. It's just not working, folks. I'm going to keep saying, because I just frankly love saying it, there is no shift. And actually, speaking of no shift, and speaking of totally incompetent, there's also no shift in Joe Biden's approval rating.
Biden was elected to restore competency and stability to Washington after Donald Trump. But his job approval trails other recent presidents, including Trump, at this point in the election cycle. After a lingering pandemic, the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan, failure to stem rising costs, failure to pass voting rights legislation, and a failure to substantially address climate change or immigration challenges.
Joe Biden is hitting the lowest levels he's ever seen. Take a look at the last 3 polls released. Rasmussen Reports, Reuters, Ipsos, and Insider Advantage show Joe Biden at 37, 36, and 37% approval, and he continues to maintain the biggest negative spread between approval and disapproval of any president in modern polling history. He is the biggest disaster I have ever seen, and the White House is completely clueless and completely desperate. They are totally unable to turn this thing around. Their most recent strategy has been to rely more heavily on Kamala Harris. Since the beginning of 2022, Joe Biden has done just 2 press interviews. Kamala Harris has done 36. With the little graphic that you see right over here, they've been pushing Kamala Harris for all of these press interviews and press events. And of course, it's been an utter disaster. Not only does Kamala Harris continue to speak in circles,
And so there is a lot at stake. We cannot wait for Congress to act. Congress must act. But also we cannot wait for Congress to act, which is why the president...
Congress must act, but we can also not wait for Congress to act. Kamala Harris's brain continues to chase its own tail. Not only is she incompetent and incoherent, but she's completely out of touch, and she doesn't know how to appeal to voters. Most recently, she said this.
So these are the fights that are still on the table. There's still more to do. But there is so much that people demanded and asked for and ordered in that election in 2020 that has actually been delivered. And there's no question there's more to do.
As her voting base is saying that we want you to actually deliver things you've delivered on nothing. We want you to work for us. Her response is, well, there's so much that we've delivered. Name a single thing, please. What is one thing, other than maybe the infrastructure plan that wasn't even primarily focused on infrastructure spending, name one thing that this White House or this Democrat majority in Congress has achieved or accomplished? Well, the answer is they've done nothing. And instead of actually tackling important issues to the American people, they continue to pat themselves on the back. One little jobs number gets released and all of a sudden, Joe Biden's the greatest economic president of mankind. They continue to congratulate themselves for all of their incredibly historic successes that seem to only live in their minds, and of course not in reality. And they continue to focus on nothing issues that aren't winning issues for them whatsoever, aren't important issues, instead of actually listening to the American people, listening to their voters. And they continue to act exactly as you might expect, like totally incoherent, out of touch, corrupt, empty suit Democrat politicians. And the Joe Biden administration, or the Brandon regime, seems to be exposing a whole lot of people to that reality. You know, the Trump administration is often described as opening people's eyes to the dishonest media and the bullshit narratives. Excuse my French. Well, the Brandon regime seems to be opening people's eyes and waking people up to the incompetence, the elitism, and the corruption of the Democrat establishment. And back to back, those two things following consecutively might be the ultimate political red pill. We'll just have to see, folks. We'll have to see what happens in 2024. But one thing I know for sure, coping Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, there is no shift. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.